Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is David, and yes, the title that you're reading here, I'm not kidding, it's not clickbait. This is a story about a girl named Lucky. This is the story about how one time I was almost murdered, not by accident, but by someone actually planning to do so. But before we start, I want to start off by saying that I'm very excited. My name is David Allegre, and I'm a YouTuber from Mexico City. But just until recently, I decided that it was just about time to expand to a whole new audience, so I just started my channel in English. So this is my first official video in English, and I'm also gonna leave my other links down below to my other channels, just in case you speak Spanish and you're interested. I wanted to start this channel with a story time because my viewers actually really like when I do story times in Spanish, so I hope my new viewers like them as well. And actually, this story, which is 100% real, I've never talked about it just because it was very traumatic and I don't talk about it very often, but I don't know, I just figured it would be a good one to start with. So it started around probably 10 years ago, and I remember that because just after this, my family moved houses. So probably, yeah, it was me being around 15 or 16 years old. So back in the day, well, I am from Mexico City, I live here. But back in the day, I used to live in this ghetto-ass apartment building, so yeah. And I do remember having as neighbors this particular family, which was a hot mess. I think it was the mom, which was an older woman. Probably she was around her 70s or 60s, I don't know. She was like an older woman. And she had like her 3 sons, which were 2 guys and this girl. The older guy and the girl, they lived with her for a while, but I think that eventually with the years they moved or something. But the one that stuck with her was the youngest guy. And let me tell you guys, this guy was the black sheep of the building. He was a hot mess. He was a thug. He always was breaking into apartments, getting in all sorts of trouble with the law. He was the worst. He was just literally the worst neighbor. Most of the time he was either on drugs or he was drunk, or he wasn't violent by any means, but he was definitely weird and scary for sure. Well, the hallways of the building used to have plants like for decor. And I remember that when I was younger, one day I was playing within those plants, and I remember finding a little bag of what I now suspect is cocaine, because it was a little bag with powder. Of course, I didn't know what it was at the time. I mean, I'm assuming it was cocaine. I don't know for sure. I didn't try it. But it was one of those things that even as a child, you knew it was drugs. And I remember my 11 or 12-year-old self being like, oh my god, this is the scariest, blah, 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 this is the worst. And just grabbing the little bag and flushing it down the toilet. And one of the things that he would do is that every now and then he would break into apartments to steal. And I remember as a kid that this was something that I was absolutely terrified about. The thought of him breaking into my apartment was something, even to this day, is something that is very scary. Me being that young and just thinking of this older guy breaking into your apartment, perhaps when you're alone, or I don't know, it's just something that I was constantly scared about. Also, these apartment buildings had storage units, and I remember that my dad had 2 of these units. We had one where we would keep, just basic stuff, basic everyday stuff, for example, Christmas lights or bicycles or whatever. It was like our attic, but it was a storage unit within the building. And then he also used to rent this other storage unit where he used to keep stuff for his work. Either paperwork or electronics or whatever. So one day this guy breaks into our personal storage unit, and I don't remember what he stole, but I don't know, whatever. Of course that my parents got super annoyed and they got super mad. But then about 2 months or a month after that, I can't remember, just a little bit after that, this guy breaks into one of our storage units again, but this time it was the other one where my dad used to keep all the stuff for his job. And I don't know, probably if you're a kid from the 90s like me, you'll remember these things. I'm gonna try to put a picture right here. Basically, like the smartphones of the time, of the era. Smartphones of the early 2000s. So one day, this guy breaks into the storage unit and basically steals them. And this is where everything started to go downhill. Here's the thing. These devices were owned by my dad's company. and they had a lot of information that was very important. And if they were to get lost, that information would also get lost. So my dad is livid. He's very angry. He goes up to him and they start arguing, and my dad is like, you know what, I know that you did it, and this time it was one too many because you cannot be doing that. This is the part of the story that I don't quite remember exactly how it happened, but I do remember that the police ended up they find them, and the guy, of course, is charged with burglary and probably grand theft, because it was a lot of devices, so it was a lot of money. And he ends up going to court and whatnot, and he is sent to jail. But here's the thing, can't remember, but probably 2 months later or a month later, I mean, it was fast, he comes out of jail. So more than ever, I was super scared of this guy now. This one day that I'm at home minding my own business, it's actually a night. And here's the thing, my dad, as I told you, is a doctor. So a couple of days of the week, he had to stay over at the hospital. So those nights, I would stay home. It was me, my mom, and my little brother. It was just the three of us by ourselves. So one of these nights, I'm just minding my own business. I think it was a school night, probably was, I don't know, a Tuesday or a Wednesday, whatever. And I go to bed, and for some reason, I remember that I took a shower and I went to bed. And for some reason, I couldn't sleep. I was just very anxious. So an hour goes by or 2 hours go by and I couldn't sleep. I was very anxious. So I think that a couple of hours passed, probably 1 or 2 hours passed. And I remember hearing that my mom gets up and goes to the bathroom. And then I hear that she starts to throw up. And for a moment, I don't think a lot about it. I'm like, oh, she probably got sick. She probably got food poisoning. But then she's like, she wouldn't stop. She started to throw up like a lot. So then I get a little worried. And I think, you know what, I think I need to check on her to see if she's fine. And I remember that the moment that I got off the bed, I felt the weirdest. I felt super dizzy, and I felt as if the floor just like went just kept going further away, and as if my legs just became very long. It was a very bizarre sensation. I was like, you know what, maybe it's one of those things where you get up super fast and then your brain gets like this dizzy or something. So I was thinking maybe that's what happened. So I woke up to my mom and she's like throwing up nonstop at the toilet, and I'm like, Mom, are you okay? Like, why are you throwing up so much? And she's like, I don't know, I just feel very nauseated, blah blah blah. And she's like throwing up. So I'm standing there at the toilet, like just watching over my mom and like, are you okay? When suddenly I listen to my little brother that he wakes up, he throws up, and then goes back to sleep. And that's a moment when I thought, you know what, something here's off. Because nobody does that. Nobody throws up and just goes casually back to sleep. Immediately rush up to him and I'm like, are you okay? And I remember that he was just like laying down. So I tried to wake him up and he wouldn't react. And that's the moment when I was like, you know what, something's really wrong. So because I started to try to wake him up and he's just not reacting. That was one of the scariest things I've ever experienced in my life. Because here was my brother, my younger brother. He was very small at the time. He was around probably 10 years old. I can't remember. He was around 10 or 11, 10 years old. He was a young kid. And he just wouldn't respond. And I remember that he couldn't hold himself up. He was just like very, I don't know, just like unresponsive and out of it. And I just got a hunch, you know, like it's something in the air. For some reason, that's what I thought, like something in the air. So I grabbed my brother by his armpits and I just dragged him out of the apartment. At the moment we got to the hallway, he set his foot on the floor. So I walked him to a window on the hallway and I opened the window and I was like, you know what, you stay here and just breathe fresh air and call me if you need anything. I'm gonna get Mom. So I go back to the apartment, and by this moment my mom was walking circles around the dinner table. We need to get out of here. And she's like, oh yeah, just let me get my stuff, blah blah blah. She's not making any sense at all. She was just like walking in circles around the table. This bitch, I need to get her out of here. And I grab her by the wrist and I'm like, Mom, and we seriously need to get out of here. And I drag her to the hallway, and immediately, just like my brother, she starts to react as we're in the hallway. So we're there just like trying to gain consciousness of what was going on, when all of a sudden this creepy ass guy comes walking down the stairs and he's like, do you guys need anything? Are you okay? Do you need help? Like, he's trying to help us. But here's the thing. I wasn't shouting. I wasn't doing, like, I didn't call the police. I wasn't crying for help. As crazy as the situation was, everything was happening in a very calm way. So there wasn't any reason of why someone would be alarmed. So I found super suspicious that this guy just immediately appeared in the middle of the night just as this happened, and he knew that something was going on, like, just right there. I don't know, I just was super weirded out, and as I told you, I was terrified of him, so I was like, you know what, no, we're fine, blah, 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 we don't need anything. So he leaves, and I rushed to this other neighbor and knock on the door, this other woman that I actually knew and trusted, and I was like, you know what, this just happened, so I don't know what was going on. So she calls an ambulance, and we get rushed to the hospital where my dad used to work. So we get rushed to the emergency room, and my dad comes, and the nurses start to attend us, and the doctors, and we start to, like, answer all these questions, and they start checking on our vitals and whatnot, and they soon realized that we actually were having carbon monoxide poisoning, CO2 poisoning. This gas is very poisonous, and you don't feel it. You just go to sleep and basically die. So the next day, the firemen go to our apartment to check if there was a leak or where did we get this gas from or what was going on. But here's where the story gets even more creepy. My apartment was on the top floor, so it was easy to access from the roof. Also, our whole gas and ventilation system was accessed through the roof. So when the firemen and the police started to check everything, they realized that the ventilation and that everything, like the gas tubes, and that everything had been, I don't know how to say it, it just had been like altered by someone. Like, there were some tubes that were stuffed with paper and with socks, and with someone was actively trying to fuck up with whatever system there was. So something happened within the apartment, whether it was exploding, whether it was us dying from poisoning. Definitely someone had done it. Like, it wasn't an accident. It wasn't the system going wrong from being old or breaking off from rain or whatever. It was someone that just tampered with it. The thing is that he was always at the roof. Like, he was always hanging out at the roof. So it would have been easier for him to access all of the ventilation system and everything and to mess up with it. Like, immediately after that, my parents realized how unsafe was for us to live there. So after this happened, I remember that we moved immediately within, like, probably the next day or the next 2 days. It was just like that. And I remember that the house that we moved to, they didn't even have any doors or, like, even floors. It was still very much a work in progress. So we ended up moving. This guy completely vanished from the face of earth. Thank God I never saw him again. This girl that is my friend, that she actually also used to live in this apartment building, told me that a few years later, this guy tried to rob a convenience store that was just around the corner from the building. But this time, finally, he was caught and was sent to jail. And as far as I know, I think he's in jail to this day. I don't know. I don't care anymore. I haven't seen him ever again since then, thank God. But yeah, it was a crazy story for sure. So that was the story of how I almost die because of somebody planning it. Thank God it didn't happen. Can you imagine? So that's that for a beautiful story time, kids. Please let me know what would you like to see, if you want more story times, or if you want me to do a little bit of a tag or a challenge. I don't know. Put it in the comments down below to rate and subscribe, and I'll see you till next time. Ciao!